Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, March 20th. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer, joined by the one, the only, CJ the Hitman Hickman. CJ, what is up, buddy?
What's going on, man? That intro was beautiful.
I know, right?
Love in that intro.
Got that high energy. We're loving having something to talk about. New league year. We're getting into it. There's so much going on. Oh, that last show went a little long, admittedly.
My God, yes.
2 hours. We're going to do our best to try and stay within our normal time constrictions this time, but who knows? It could be off the rails. I mean, it's all news. It's all that's going on, which is, a welcome change of pace, especially knowing that, once we get through the draft, we're going to all of a sudden have another long spell of nothing going on. So let's enjoy it while we have it, I guess. For everyone out there, hello, welcome to the show. If this is your first time joining us, again, I'm Griffin. This is CJ, two of the three men who are normally here for this recording. CJ's here. Jason Cabrera he couldn't make it today.
Under the weather.
A little under the weather. Yeah. We told him, take a sick day, come back when you're feeling strong, get the voice right, and we're going to push on. We got this. We can do this. If you guys are listening, make sure you guys subscribe wherever you're listening on iTunes or the Apple Podcast app, I think is what they call it now. Google Play, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, all these various streaming services, a few more on the way. Basically, wherever you are, just look for the Fantasy Football Fanatics. You'll probably find us. You can follow us on Twitter, where we are pretty darn active, if I do say so myself, at the FF Fanatics. You really interact with the show there. Submit your questions. It's a very easy way to do it. But, we have an amazing show for you guys today. Today, we're going to continue to be talking about all the top headlines from around the league. Lots of free agency signings still happening. Lots of things happened over the weekend. And we're going to really start trying to project things forward. We recapped, we talked about our thoughts, but now that we've had a chance to process things, we're going to start talking about how some of these top fantasy-relevant free agents landing at these different spots around the league, how that might impact fantasy football, and therefore our decisions on who we should be thinking about drafting in our fantasy drafts. If you guys want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You can really help us support the show, keep the lights on, help us keep doing what we're doing, and get yourself a bunch of bonus perks every single week, including the bonus episodes. And if you want to support the show, but you're a little, not able to open the wallet and help us financially, we understand. Times are tough. Life is hard. If you want to help the show out easily, just go wherever you are listening right now. YouTube is a little tough because they don't do reviews, but any of those aforementioned streaming services, if you go on there, give us a rating, give us a review, it really helps the show out a ton. We appreciate it a lot. And hey, if you give us a review, we'll probably give you a shout out on the show. Read it. It'll be fun for you. You can tell your friends and play it back. It'll be fun. But with that, I guess let's go ahead and move into our top headlines from around the league. And we will start with a huge league-wide headline, and this has immediate ramifications and implications for a lot of other teams around the league. The New York Jets, they have moved up in the draft this year from the number 6 spot to the number 3 spot, trading with the Indianapolis Colts. Now, they move up to number 3. I think we have to assume this is because they have at least 3 quarterbacks that they like, and they're hoping that at least, obviously one of those 3 will be there, but maybe even one of their top 2 guys will fall there if Saquon Barkley gets picked in one of those top 2 picks. Maybe they were not able to trade up with the Giants, who had openly said they were willing to trade. Maybe the price was too steep. But, hey, trading with the Colts, that wasn't cheap either. They swap first-round picks. They also send the Colts their 37th overall pick, which is a second-round pick, of course, their 49th overall pick, which is another second-round pick this year, and a second-round pick for next year's 2019 NFL draft.
Yeah, man.
That's a steep price to move up just a couple spaces.
They're busy, man. They're busy.
Whew, CJ, what are your thoughts here, man? Obviously, they've got to be pulling the trigger on quarterback. I think we would all safely assume that, right?
I think it's a win-win because, first of all, you look at the Jets situation right now, they don't necessarily have to go quarterback, even though we all assume that they will. And even if they do go quarterback, the kid, whoever that's going to be, they don't have to come out and start immediately because they still got 2 vets right now already in the system. So I think that's a win for them as far as them to be able to groom the kid, whoever gets in there, and, they can take their time with it, because right now there's a lot of bad situations, bad history of throwing quarterbacks out there to the fire when they're not ready. I mean, you already look at Cleveland's situation with Kaiser. You saw how that turned out. It was not good, and now he's not even with the team no more.
Nope.
So as far as the Colts other side, I think it's definitely a win with them because this is a team that has a lot of needs, So you can be able to get these picks and address that not only this year, but have that extra second round pick in the following year. I think a lot of people don't really value or see the value in these second round picks because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent with these kids in the second round, and if you can be able to get that pick, and not all of them are going to be hits, but if you can be able to hit on them and they're in a perfect fit, that's a win. So I like it on both sides. I think it was a good trade. I mean, I saw some of the memes and stuff they were doing about this trade that was pretty funny. But either at the end of the day, I think this is works good on both sides.
I mean, as you mentioned, the Colts in desperate need of help around the board. They move back 3 spots because I think we all know that these teams that are moving up, they're trying to pull the trigger on quarterback. This is a quarterback deep draft, as we've been saying for not just months but years, just looking forward to this draft. And they get to move back only 3 spaces and acquire 3 additional draft picks, second-round picks, 2 this year, 1 next year. Holy crap. I mean, obviously, we're all assuming Andrew Luck's going to be back. The Colts clearly assuming he's going to be back. They didn't need to draft a quarterback. 3 spots back, acquire a ton of picks, valuable picks, expensive picks. And now another winner, which we haven't even mentioned yet, has to be the New York Giants because the Giants, it's very questionable what they're going to do. Are they going to draft an offensive lineman like we've heard? Are they going to draft their quarterback of the future? Are they going to draft Saquon Barkley and get an elite running back? Or do they let one of these other incredibly quarterback-needy teams behind them trade up, take the spot, and probably get a king's ransom, even more than what the Jets just paid? It's going to be really interesting, and this is why I kind of wish Jason was here, because this is Jason's thing. Jason is all about the draft.
I think it's going to be if I'm just thinking in my mind, and there's always something crazy that happens down in the draft. You get that day of the draft trade. And I think that's what's going to be. I think there's going to be a day of the draft trade. Some team is going to get nervous, think they're going to miss the opportunity of getting their guy, and you're going to get that king's ransom for the Giants. I mean, because me personally, I don't want the Giants to get Barkley, even though I think he's a phenomenal talent, and especially with my Eagles, I think that defensive line can contain him. But just for the next, hey, I'm not going to sell the kid short. For the next 8 years, I don't want to have to deal with this kid because the kid is ridiculous. I mean, you see the tape when he's determined, he's in the perfect situation. He's probably going to be better than Zeke. I mean, just to be honest. So I don't want to see him there. So I would love the Giants to go offensive lineman or definitely go quarterback. But it's a strong possibility if their guy is not there and they just take the best person available.
I mean, I don't want to oversell Saquon Barkley, but I also don't want to undersell him. I mean, this is a guy who's being exclusively compared to NFL Hall of Fame running backs. So, I mean, that's a win. So, I mean, obviously we don't know what the Giants are going to do. For all we know, by the time you guys are listening to this recording, they may have made another blockbuster trade with somebody, moving back only a couple spots. Who knows? But it's going to be interesting, because if we have seen one thing, no matter how much we analyze these players, we look at team needs, we look at best player available, these teams that are out there in the NFL, they all understand one thing, that you need a star quarterback to win in this league, and teams will overpay for the opportunity to go get one of those guys. I mean, I think it's also safe to assume that Bryce Petty and Christian Hackenberg are gone, because the team obviously has Josh McCown re-signed as their starter, Teddy Bridgewater on a 1-year deal, who, to be fair, for Teddy's sake, he was being considered a future franchise quarterback before the freak injury, and now assumingly the Jets moving up to draft one of these other star quarterbacks, so they're going to have one heck of a competition in New York. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, not just this year, but in years going forward. I think we all accept the fact that Josh McCown, very much a journeyman quarterback, is just a placeholder, though. I think this will come down to Teddy Bridgewater and whoever they end up drafting with that number 3 pick. Have you any speculation on who they might be gunning for at this point?
As far as quarterback in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, do you think maybe they have one in mind that fits their scheme the best, or do you think that they're just kind of like, we know who our top 3 are, whichever one falls to us, we'll be happy with? Because I'm assuming it's probably a bit of the latter, if I'm honest.
I think Darnold would most likely go to Cleveland, if Cleveland's smart. I think he's going there. I think it's probably, I mean, I'm either thinking Allen or They could go Allen or Rosen. I mean, I've seen some people linking everybody that I've seen as far as mock drafts wise. I see a lot of people think linking Jackson to the Cardinals, and I like the pick. I know Jason, he's otherwise when it comes to that with mobile quarterbacks, but I do like that pick. I think it would add a lot of juice to that organization. But as far as the Jets, I see them either going Allen or Rosen. To be honest. One of them two.
I think it's going to be Allen personally because I think I'm saying it right now. What is it? March 20th. The Buffalo Bills are going to move up to the number 2 spot. They're going to draft Josh Rosen, and then I think it's going to be probably Josh Allen drafted number 3 overall by the Jets. Either that or Baker Mayfield. I think it's going to be one of those two because I think that
you got Baker going that high?
Dude, Baker Mayfield, if you look at what all the scouts are saying, they're saying he is just as talented, arm talent, everything that he can do just as good as Sam Darnold. The only knock against him is he's not one of these freakishly tall quarterbacks, which is why he's knocking down and he's got these off-the-field issues. But like we said, these teams, these NFL teams with their multi-million dollar scouting, everything that they have, GMs, the knowledge, everything, all their experience, we see the off-the-field issues, they see it, but they're going to probably overspend on a guy who could turn their franchise around. And all the scouts are saying Baker Mayfield on the field has that talent. So maybe. And we like we just said, these teams overspend on these quarterbacks when especially if there's going to be a run 1, 2, 3. I could see it happening, that he be one of those guys that sneak up there. Because Josh Allen, as impressive as he was at the NFL Combine, and we're getting really off topic here, we're ranting a little bit, he is not the most accurate quarterback. He's actually very inaccurate as far as this top upper echelon of quarterbacks in this draft class are. So it's him and Lamar Jackson are both in the 50% completion rate, that range, where all these other guys obviously much, much higher, which is going to be coming down to that. Does a team think that their quarterback coach and their coaching staff can reel that in, or do they just want that big gun? They just throw it up and let their star receivers go get it. It's going to be team specific, I think, but
it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be really interesting. All I'm saying is that we know Mayfield has the arm to make a lot more throws than Allen does. Allen just has the arm to throw it a heck of a lot deeper. So it'll be interesting. And this is just my take, all the film that I've watched and a lot of the scouts that I've heard from, and just basically how I think the draft's going to play out, because the Bills have been acquiring draft picks. And I don't think any of us think A.J. McCarron is going to be their long-term solution there. I don't think for a second that the Bills believe that.
I would like it to be, but I do expect them to bring in some competition for him.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. But let's move on. We're spending way too much time on this big headline, to be fair. Let's move on to some of the other top headlines, and we'll go to the quarterback position, where quarterback Sam Bradford's deal was originally reported to be a 1-year, $20 million deal. Turns out that new reports are saying that it's actually a 2-year, $40 million deal. So he got double what we thought. And I mean, the prove-it deal aspect I kind of liked with him in Arizona, because obviously he's a huge injury risk. That's something we talk about all the time. This is why, again, I wish Jason was here. But I mean, 2 years gives him a year to learn the system. If he's healthy, you don't have to overspend like crazy to keep him, because if he has a really good year this year and he stays healthy, his asking price is going to be a lot higher than what it would be to just sign him to 2 years of the same value. So I don't mind this move personally. The Cardinals have the money. They're not great against the cap, but they're doing fine. They're doing better than a lot of other teams. And as we've argued, if this guy was not a massive injury concern, I think he would have been the top quarterback in this free agency pool. He's the most accurate over his career by far. So obviously him and Kirk. So I don't know. What do you think? I know you're a little bit more biased on him.
Well, I mean, listen, he's a great quarterback. I like him in the right systems when it comes to offensively. I mean, I loved him in Minnesota. He was getting the ball to the playmakers, and he was great for fantasy. And he was a great. I know people weren't drafting him, but he was a great, off the waiver wire guy, fill-in guy, stopgap guy. If you had somebody that was on injury, or if you were in a bind that week, he was a great play for you. I am a little hesitant to say that is going to be a follow-up for this year as well, just because the talent that's around. And I think Jason will be honest with himself and say that too. Right now, on that team, outside of DJ, David Johnson, it's not a lot of talent on that team. You got an aging Larry Fitzgerald, and I'm not putting no shame on Larry, but I mean,
first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt.
First ballot Hall of Famer, but he's old, man. And then when it comes to, he's going to be great for you at the beginning of the season, but later on, those money weeks, you get down to week 10, going on all up to playoffs and championships. Larry's going to be burnt out because there's no other talent there to be able to help out and get the load off. So
Yeah.
this is a situation where, I famously, people that are fans of the show, they know me. I mean, I like to look at teams like this and potential offenses like this in the preseason. I like to examine them closely just to see the chemistry and see if there's any chemistry that might be formed between Bradford and the other receivers outside of Larry, and see if he gets the tight end involved, and see how potent or what the potential of this offense can be with him in it, with a lack of weapons. Now, I did see a report talking about a former Eagles wide receiver, Jordan Matthews, supposed to be visiting the Cardinals, and maybe be a potential signing. And you look at the numbers between him, Sam Bradford, and Jordan Matthews. They had a good little stretch with them two in Philadelphia. So if that happens, that definitely boosts his stuff up. And he can be a late round guy that you can be able to draft, as far as Matthews I'm saying. And he'll have some good value there. So I like that potential. It's not set in stone yet, but I did see them that they were supposed to be visiting though.
I think that's definitely an interesting signing, because if they bring Jordan Matthews over, he's going to be in the slot, which is how Larry Fitzgerald plays. So do they bump Larry back outside? Do they just do a lot of underneath stuff and have J.J. Nelson and Chad Williams and all those other guys just run deep, stretch the field? Because as of right now, their starting wide receivers are probably going to be Larry Fitzgerald, J.J. Nelson, and then a bunch of random, not too many other receivers even on the team, to be honest, guys behind them. We know that Sam Bradford likes to use his tight end, so Jermaine Gresham, he becomes very interesting. Ricky Seals-Jones, we've heard them come out and say that they want to get him more involved. They think he's earned more playing time. He was good at times. Obviously, David Johnson is usable in both phases, running and catching, so that's interesting. But David Johnson is also concerning. I mean, obviously, he burned a lot of people, and maybe it's best that Jason isn't here, because Jason's a little bit blind when it comes to David Johnson. And
he is. He's David Johnson is Captain America. He can't do no wrong.
He can't do any wrongs.
He can take on all the loads when that's not the case. You know what I mean? I'm just and I thought I made a valid argument when we did our mock draft recently, and you picked David Johnson.
We did, and I do it again. If I'm honest, I do it again.
I feel you, but I'm really concerned. I'm really nervous for David Johnson this year, just because not only him coming off an injury, but once again, he's the only thing there. And the most recent comparison I can make to a situation like that is with Todd Gurley at the Rams.
Yep.
He was the only thing there. And they forced that organization to throw the ball, and right then and there, they didn't have the proper quarterback to move the ball down the field. There was a poor constructive offense with Jeff Fisher, and it sucked. People drafted Todd Gurley high, and they got crap for him. He was damn near draftable. That's basically what it was like.
I mean, that was Jeff Fisher. Really, really bad offensive minds, bad play calling, bad offensive line. Yeah, all of those.
But
things.
You got Mike McCoy.
You
got Mike McCoy, and then you got Jason on here. He's even questioning that. He didn't even like that signing. So I don't understand. He can't really sell me off of David Johnson being there. David Johnson, hell of a talent. But if you can't even sell me on you believe in that organization and that his production is going to be even yet more than what he was with Bruce Irving. Not Bruce Irving, I'm sorry. Bruce Arians. So that's debatable to me. That was the reason why I was debating about it when we were doing the mock draft.
And I like to think I kind of walked the line between you two guys, because I still think that if Jason had the number 1 overall pick, he would draft David Johnson without even thinking about it. Hands down.
Doesn't matter who's there.
And we'll have to bring this up when he's back on hopefully Friday's show. I have no problem with my early rankings. I have David Johnson as one of those top 4, top 5 running backs. I think that he's worthy of that. My concern with David Johnson, because he's going to get a lot of volume, he's going to get a lot of dump-off passes. We know that Sam Bradford likes to dump off. Sam Bradford's very accurate. He throws a lot of high-percentage throws. David Johnson's going to be on the receiving end of a lot of those. My concern with David Johnson, and the concern that a lot of the fantasy community is sharing right now, is his injury risk. I mean, he was an Iron Man for a while, but the last 2 times we've seen David Johnson take the field, he's gotten injured and had to leave both of those games. At the end of the 2016 season, that Week 17 game, he tweaked his knee. Everyone thought for sure that he had destroyed himself. He was fine. He bounced back. He was okay after a little bit of physical therapy. He was good. And then he comes back, starts Week 1, messes up his wrist. Now, as we've heard, he could have come back, but the Cardinal season was over, so why risk it? I get that. But, I mean, it's just one of those things where people are now starting to be concerned with David Johnson's durability. I think that it's a justifiable argument, but I think that this was a little bit of a freak injury. So I'm buying into David Johnson, giving him the benefit of the doubt. I like you. The offensive change is something we have to see, but I think he's going to get enough workload and he's talented enough to make it work as a RB1. And in a lot of mock drafts, you see him going middle of the first to the back of the first, which maybe that's a more justifiable spot for him. You're seeing wide receivers go ahead of him. And we'll see. But we're getting off topic here. So anyway, Sam Bradford, 2-year contract instead of 1. That's where this all started. Let's keep moving. Let's go to the running back position, and we'll head to Oakland, where running back Marshawn Lynch, he received a $1 million roster bonus. To me, this completely confirms and solidifies the fact that he will be on this team next year. He will be the team's lead back. There's been a lot of speculation here with obviously the bringing in of Doug Martin, but by all accounts, everything I'm hearing, I'm seeing, I believe, is that Doug Martin is going to be a rotational piece. He's a depth move. I think that it's going to be Marshawn Lynch leading, and then it's going to be some sort of crazy committee of Doug Martin, Jalen Richard, DeAndre Washington, all those guys kind of working in together. What are your thoughts?
I like it. I think this is it'll be good. I didn't really want Doug Martin to be that lead guy there. I think he'll probably work better with the Marshawn Lynch there. I mean, you probably look at the tape, you'll probably make an argument saying otherwise. You think that Doug Martin does better with with more reps and getting more rhythm. But he didn't have this offensive line that he has now with Oakland.
That's
versus
true.
what he was with Tampa. So, and I think last year was a kind of a mulligan. You got to throw that whole team mulligan with that as far as what was going on outside of Mari Cooper. He's committed to his garbageness.
And I'm wondering, because I've heard a lot of speculation here, and it's a valid argument. How much do you think that this team being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from last season, were derailed by that Week 1 bye?
I think it was a lot.
I think it rattled them.
To be honest, I think it really is. I mean, playing those many weeks straight. And then when everything was going on, because you got a lot of people's families that was there and are not there, but I know of other people that was living in that area, so that rattles them, that shakes them up. So I can definitely see it, and that's why I'm not even I'm a wash last year in my mind, as far as the Buccaneers go. So I'm really looking forward to see the real Jameis and what this offense can truly do. And then, of course, you had a lot of defensive players that were injured last year with the Buccaneers, too. That doesn't help the things either.
Right. So, again, back to the Oakland Raiders, though. They didn't have to give Marshawn this bonus. They could have released him, but now that they paid him that, I see no chance that they cut him, and I expect him to be their starter. I have to question Marshawn's durability. He needs these carries to get going. I think that John Gruden will see that and knows that and will give him that. But, I mean, I think it's going to be still a pretty healthy rotation. So we'll have to see how preseason works out, all the training camp notes to see, I think, where we will, as obviously fantasy players, will be comfortable drafting Marshawn Lynch. But for the time being, I'm penciling him in as the starting lead back. I think that's goes without saying, honestly. Let's move on. Unrestricted free agent running back LeGarrette Blount signed a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions. So he has found a new home, which means if this means anything, that the Detroit Lions are going to be Super Bowl champions this year, right?
Well, hopefully that's not the case. We trying to repeat. So
yeah,
but I do like this signing. I like the versatility this is going to bring them. They have a power back to add on to Abdullah, and then you got Washington, then you got the other backs there. So I like the different styles they got now going on there, because they needed that power guy, and I think that that short down range, and even not even long as that, LeGarrette Blount show some bursts, don't running a couple 30-yard plays or 40 yards. So he give you that burst as long as he has the lanes as far as the offensive line. This Detroit offensive line hasn't really consistently shown you that they're as far as talent wise, they're talented enough to be able to get holes for these running backs. So we'll see about that. We'll see how that goes. But I do like the signing, and I nothing but best wishes to him, because he did do a good job with us with the Eagles this past season.
Yeah. So LeGarrette Blount, look, he's 31. That's fine. And for all of you out there, they're like, "What the heck is he talking about? They're going to win the Super Bowl." It's a long running joke. If you follow us on Twitter or follow just most of the fantasy community, a lot of people are talking about it. The last two teams LeGarrette Blount's played for, both those teams have won the Super Bowl, Patriots and then Eagles. So that's the running joke here. But yeah, he's reunited with Matt Patricia, who was his defensive coordinator in New England. So New England ties run deep. Obviously, a working relationship. Got him a contract, 1-year deal, and kind of like you were saying, the Lions have not had a very successful track record of running the ball in recent memory. So a lot of that is offensive line. Some of that you could argue is the talent that they have back there, the injury risks that all of those players that they had before they brought in Blount were, representing. Obviously, LeGarrette Blount, he's not really a pass-catching back. He's very much a north-south bruiser. He's a red zone rushing, push the ball across the line, score that touchdown type guy. He had 173 rushing attempts last year for 766 yards, which is pretty darn good. Only 2 touchdowns, which is honestly kind of surprising to me. But obviously he caught another one. But yeah, his career high in catches in a season is 15. So he's obviously not going to be using that aspect, so the other running backs that they have in Detroit to kind of serve that. Amir Abdullah is still there. I don't know. Do you think that it's going to be a real rotation behind him, or do you think it's going to be mostly Amir Abdullah?
I think it's going to be a rotation, to be honest. I don't think they brought him in there just to be short down rotation. I think they'll probably look at Eagles film and, see how they used him sparingly and get him involved with that, get Abdullah involved, and probably some of the other backs. But I think
Theo Riddick has been about an RB2 in PPR for the last couple of years. He's been sneaky good.
He's been sneaky good
as a pass catcher.
I think that's what they're probably going to do.
Yeah, Zach Zenner, one of Jason's favorite guys, obviously not seizing any opportunities there. Dwayne Washington, I think, is completely useless now because he plays the same role as LeGarrette Blount. So, yeah, I don't know. This team, we don't really know what to expect. Jim Bob Cooter's still there, so at least there's some consistency there. But maybe Matt Patricia wants to see some different things, new personnel. We'll see how it all plays out. Last bit of running back news. The New England Patriots signed unrestricted free agent running back Jeremy Hill. So I am very intrigued by this signing. Obviously, Jeremy Hill, a kid who had a fantastic rookie season. He got on everyone's good side for fantasy. Everyone was ecstatic about this guy. He was drafted incredibly high the following years, and he's never lived up to that billing. I think that this is also interesting because I would assume that this is the end of Mike Gillislee experiment in New England. They have him under contract there, but he does the exact same thing that Jeremy Hill does. What are your thoughts, CJ?
This was very questionable to me when they did it, but I get it though. I see that, like what they say, Mike Gillislee, he's probably on his way out. They bringing him in, replace Deion Lewis's role, and there's probably going to be a lot more stuff for Burkhead and James White when it comes to pass catching. And as far as their bruisers, they're probably going to bring Jeremy Hill in to be that dude, and boy's going to be getting out of there. As far as Gillislee, I wish Gillislee could have got some more work. I wish it would have worked out for him, but it unfortunately it didn't work out. But it was surprising when this came through. But I kind of see the writing on the wall when you actually take time to break it down how this is going to play out.
Yeah, obviously they traded for Mike Gillislee from the Buffalo Bills last offseason, signed a 2-year deal, $6.5 million rough. But it was basically a 1-year deal. They have him this year for about $2 million against the cap, so they might just hold on to him. They might just keep him there as a depth move, kind of like they did this year. They kind of rolled him out in certain situations. But if they do need to cut him and create some cap space, he has 0 dead cap, so they can cut him for nothing. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that Mike Gillislee is just kind of moving down the depth chart here, but I assume there will be a competition with Jeremy Hill, because Jeremy Hill, he's got stuff to prove. He went from being the number one back in 2014 and 15 to kind of sharing that role in 2016 to obviously last year losing out on that role, Joe Mixon there. So Giovanni Bernard's still in Cincinnati. They let Jeremy Hill go. He's now a Patriot, but we've seen this in the past. These guys that have really, really flashed, we know the talent is there. Maybe it was the situation. Maybe it was the circumstances. Maybe they didn't have the motivation. The Patriots bring these guys in, and all of a sudden these guys are fantasy superstars. So who knows? Maybe Jeremy Hill is going to be awesome for fantasy, and we'll all be way, way underdrafting him. But we'll see. Time will tell. I will be watching this closely during the preseason just to see how just the depth at the position kind of shakes out on the roster. So, yeah, let's move on. Wide receiver news. Unrestricted free agent wide receiver Michael Crabtree signed with the Baltimore Ravens. He signed a 3-year deal. This is very exciting for me as a Ravens fan.
I can hear it. I hear it in your voice.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone... Like, I was listening to, like, ESPN talk about this, and they were saying how, Michael Crabtree, the best wide receiver that the Ravens have had since Steve Smith. I was like, we went one season without Steve Smith.
That's accurate.
That's accurate. I would agree. But, yeah, Michael Crabtree, obviously, they're getting him at a much younger point in his career than when Steve Smith was here. I would say he very much fills that Steve Smith, that Anquan Bolden, that Mike, not so much Mike Wallace, but the Derek Mason role, that really good possession receiver who can play outside. Michael Crabtree is going to be probably the best receiver that we've had in a long time. I think that is safe to say based on this point in his career, how good he's been. And I think he'll be a good fit. Now, do I think he's going to match his numbers that he got in Oakland? That's tough to say because though in Oakland he had a lot of competition, Amari Cooper obviously being one of them, which whether you like or hate Amari Cooper, the numbers don't lie. They were kind of neck and neck when we got to the end of the year, the total fantasy production. It's one of those things where in Baltimore, he doesn't really have that competition. Obviously, we signed John Brown to a deal, speedy outside guy, which is going to be a nice 1-2 punch, I think, provided that John Brown can stay healthy. That sickle cell trait is very concerning. But he's also got to overcome Joe Flacco, who, if you watch any Baltimore football, you'll see that Joe Flacco likes to throw behind guys. He likes to throw high. He stretches his receivers out. He's not elite. I'm sorry. I can say this as a Baltimore fan. He is not an elite quarterback. I know there's a billion excuses for him that, he hasn't had consistency at the offensive coordinator position, consistency at his weapons, whatever. He's been injured on and off as of late, whatever it may be. But look, the elite quarterbacks, they get it done. He hasn't. I think we can put this argument to rest now. But I don't know. I like Michael Crabtree. I think he's going to be... he'll probably be drafted as a low-end wide receiver, too, and I think he can return somewhere on that value, maybe higher, depending on how heavily he's targeted, the touchdowns he gets. Obviously, in PPR, he gets a boost, but I don't know. I might be too close to it. So, CJ, I ask you, what are your thoughts on the fit of Michael Crabtree in Baltimore?
Well, I mean, he has the potential to be that guy. He has the potential to stand out. I'm a little nervous with that in that system, though. You outside of Steve Smith, y'all don't have the best track record of fantasy production when it comes to wide receiver position. So I think as far as his position on being drafted, I think it's gonna drop a little bit significantly. He's not gonna be that guy we're gonna be seeing in the second round. I think anything, it'll probably be. I think the earliest he's probably gonna get off the people's boards is probably around round 4. I think just because the situation that he's in, some people are probably just gonna drop off a name value alone, but not really look into the system and see how effective he's gonna be. I mean, he's gonna be the number one guy out there off of name, but it's as far as working on the system, because you guys did pick up John Brown there too, right? Correct.
Yep, we got him.
All right, so that's gonna be the deep threat. He can do deep threat too, but I really see him that possession guy, like you said, kind of playing like Derek Mason, and that might work because that's Joe Flacco and Derek Mason. They had a good connection there.
They did,
but I don't know. Just right now, just being the system, I like the fit because he can be able to be that guy there. You got it. It definitely felt the need, but I'm a little hesitant on buying in on this just because I know knowing the system with y'all and wide receivers. No, it's not a good track record.
Over under, because he got around this number his 2 years in Oakland, that he was healthy. Mm-hmm. His third year, obviously, last year, he missed a couple games. But his 2 full seasons in 2015 and 2016, he got around 80 receptions and 1,000 yards. Do you think he gets around that number in Baltimore?
80 receptions, 1,000 yards. I do see him getting the yards, and I guess gotta sell out and say on the receptions. I can see it because I just think opportunity wise he has an opportunity. I mean, I don't really see that anybody else in that system. He's gonna throw the ball a couple times deep to try to and test it with John Brown. I think that's gonna be his guy right there. But yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, because the best year that Steve Smith Sr. had in Baltimore, which is obviously the position he's coming in to fill, was 79 receptions, 1,065 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He averaged about 8 to 9 touchdowns in Oakland, Michael Crabtree. He's taller than Steve Smith, so I think he'll be more of a red zone threat. I could see him getting back to those averages, which honestly, that got him high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 fantasy numbers. But it's going to be probably a lot of targets that are going his way that's going to get him here, and this is all assuming he stays healthy, of course. I don't know. You say 4th round. I think that in leagues that are in the know, I think that's the earliest you'll see him go. But on name value in your more casual leagues, you could see Michael Crabtree going in like the 3rd round. Yeah. And I think that's going to be a little bit rich for my blood.
Not rich.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So I'll be very intrigued to track this guy based on his average draft position as we move through the offseason. Closer to draft season, of course, as more and more mock drafts are occurring. Let's move on, though. Unrestricted free agent wide receiver Terrell Pryor has visited with the Seattle Seahawks. There was a rumor that came out that said that he signed with the team, but they came out, I believe, and said that that was a false rumor, and he is currently scheduled to visit with the New York Jets. So I ask you, CJ, what do you think's a better fit for Terrell Pryor, Seahawks or Jets?
I think I think the fit is better in Seattle, especially as far as overall system. I think I like the quarterback play a lot better in Seattle versus the Jets, but I do see more opportunities for him to be the guy and be that main guy in the Jets. But as far as production-wise, I don't really like the production with him with the Jets versus him with Seattle. I think you put him in Seattle, I think it's going to be a little time for him to get that chemistry together. But, I mean, if you look at the report, Russell Wilson was the guy that was really trying to bring him in. I mean, this is his guy. He really wants him to play for them. I think right now it's just all about making sure the money is right. I mean, because what he did last year, that really hurt him. And if I was him, I would, you got to do the same thing you did last year. You bet on yourself. You got to bet on yourself again. And with this situation, but it's a better situation for you because you got a better quarterback, to be honest, in my opinion, versus what you had in Washington.
Yeah, for me, it comes down to opportunity. But the opportunity, as far as obviously depth charts go, is about the same. You've got one guy who's the starter, Doug Baldwin, obviously, in Seattle. Quincy Nunwa, you have to say, is that guy in New York with the Jets, because behind him, Robbie Anderson, we don't know what the off-the-field legal ramifications, suspensions, player conduct policy suspensions. We don't know what's going to happen with Robbie Anderson yet. In Seattle, there's Marcus Johnson, who's the next guy, and Tyler Lockett, both of which have huge question marks around them. Some upside players in New York with the Jets are Darius Stewart is obviously there, Devin Smith. So, I mean, to me, it's kind of a wash. If Robbie Anderson plays, I think that there's more competition in New York. But then you go to the next tier, and I think in a lot of ways the more important one, quarterback. So we've got Josh McCown versus Russell Wilson. I think that's a pretty drastic difference in quality of quarterback play. Though you're going to have a much more traditional offense with Todd Bowles and Jeremy Bates in New York. Josh McCown's going to try and stay in the pocket. Where with obviously Pete Carroll and Brian Schottenheimer in Seattle, it's a lot more of, quarterback's going to scramble because the offensive line wasn't able to keep a clean pocket, and you have to be able to roll out and adjust to the quarterback. So I really don't know what the better fit's going to be here. I think you have to assume that the upside is higher in Seattle, better opportunity, better quarterback, but I think it could go either way. So it's interesting. I'm sorry. What'd you say your final answer was? Where would you like to see him?
I like to see him with Seattle. I think the Seattle Seahawks would be better for me.
All right, well, I can't disagree based on the argument I just made. So, yep, let's move on. And let's go to – we're staying at the wide receiver position. New England Patriots have picked up wide receiver Cordero Patterson. They traded with the Oakland Raiders. Oakland gets New England's 5th-round pick this year. New England acquires the 6th-round pick from the Raiders. So they swap picks and pick up a wide receiver. Cordero Patterson, this is a guy who if you've been following football for any extended period of time, he had all these amazing reviews and breakdowns about what a freak athlete he was, how he was the Swiss Army knife of a receiver, and he's never really lived up to that billing. So I have to assume that if any place is going to get the most out of him, it's got to be New England, but obviously New England, they've got a decent amount of receivers there. What are your thoughts on this move?
I mean, they got a plethora of receivers, just like you said. Got Chris Hogan, you got Edelman coming back. You got Cooks, and then you added him in there. So maybe they need that. Maybe they trying to bring him in to be a special returner slash, slash wide receiver. Possibly, maybe that's their game plan. But you can't really question the Patriots when it comes to moves like this because you always gotta look at this with a little, little rock eyebrow. Go like, I wonder what are they up to? Because they must see something.
Yeah,
what's going on?
I definitely think you're right. I think this is a move to shore up their kick return position. Matthew Slater, who was their guy for that, is a free agent. Cordero Patterson has been good in that role, but I don't think he's supplanting Julian Edelman or Brandon Cooks as the starters.
No.
If you want to be technical in a 3 wide receiver set, Brandon Cooks obviously on the outside, Julian Edelman on the inside. Maybe a healthy Chris Hogan is the other outside guy, or maybe a healthy Malcolm Mitchell. Philip Dorsett's there, of course. Cordero Patterson. I just don't think that he's going to stand out from this group. I mean, I think they'll use him in creative ways, a la Tavon Austin, but I don't know if I see him being, this home run hitter that they once billed him to be. I mean, I think, the highest he's had in his career was 52 receptions, and he's never broken 500 yards. So for this amazing talent, we haven't seen it. Was it 4 touchdowns, the most he's ever had in a season. Only 7 on his career. So
yeah, that's not impressive.
Yeah. 4 years with the Vikings, 1 year with the Raiders. So obviously Tom Brady and the Patriots, the best team he's played for. Maybe we'll see him take a step, but I have a hard time believing that he's going to step in and be a superstar all of a sudden. So, yeah. Let's move on. The Los Angeles Rams have re-signed wide receiver Tavon Austin, speak of the devil, to a 1-year deal. Now, technically, this is a restructured contract. We had heard all these rumors and reports that they had cut him. He had about a $5 million dead cap. So what the team essentially did here, once they lost out on Sammy Watkins, is they brought him back, because they already have this money invested in him, to a 5-year deal. So it's a new deal. And this way, they get a Swiss Army knife type piece. I hate using that term, but it's the best way to put it. They use them in so many different ways. It's very true. And they're going to be able to get something for their money out of the guy, and it gives Tavon Austin a chance to maybe revitalize his career in a very good offense. So obviously, he never got going last year, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods, Robert Woods, holy crap, was he?
Yeah, Robert Woods was amazing.
He surprised a lot of people last year.
Yeah, he got lost in the shuffle. There was a lot going on, and this offense just took off. Cooper Kupp came in.
Cooper Kupp.
He was that preseason darling. Everybody was trying to get their hands on.
Yep.
And he panned out, and I see a productive year for him going into year 2. You got Robert Woods, of course, we were talking about. He was money in this system, and of course Todd Gurley got that beat. So, process elimination alone, you would think that, with Sammy Watkins not being there, that now he has the opportunity to, be effective and, start producing this offense. But you just don't know. You just don't know what's going on with this team with him, because he's been through so many. Been through the Jeff Fisher thing. He was effective on special teams, but when it comes to fantasy, you can't always count on special teams because most leagues don't count it. So, that hurts you. And then as far as, if you want to hold out hope, you would think the one person that can utilize him and get the best out of him got to be Sean McVay. So that's probably your only that's probably most likely going to be on back of people's mind, in my opinion, when it comes to late round flyers. And that's probably what people are going to probably end up doing. I can honestly see someone taking a shot on him just on that fact alone.
Yeah, like I said, he gets a chance to revitalize his career. It's smart money by the team here, because they're going to have to pay this guy money anyway with his old contract, guaranteed money. Matt LaFleur and Sean McVay, 2 great offensive minds, and a place where he's familiar with the quarterback already. This makes sense to me for Tavon Austin, and maybe we'll see more of this guy who got a just ridiculous contract just a couple years ago. So, yeah, let's move on. Let's see. Wide receiver Dante Moncrief, he got a 1-year deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars, as we reported recently. The news has come out saying that it is a $9.6 million contract, which is fully guaranteed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
What?
Okay.
This is a team that wouldn't re-sign Allen Robinson, but just gave $10 million guaranteed, essentially, to Dante Moncrief. This is a head-scratcher for me. I don't know. What do you think, CJ?
For me as a Dante Moncrief fan, I need to see it. This got to be the year. That's a lot of good money for a very mediocre career so far with the Colts. I mean, very, very mediocre. I mean, to the fact where you are the definition of a number 2 receiver in someone's offense because, T.Y. Hilton was getting all the looks. And when it came to you, can you hold down your spot? There was some times you could, and then there was a lot of bad times where you couldn't. So now you're going to be the guy in Jacksonville. I mean, they got Marquise Lee there. They got that, what was that darling towards the end of the season that was scoring points? What was it Coleman or Cole? Or
there
was
like Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook, Jalen Strong.
Yeah. So I know Keelan Cole and Marquise Lee and Allen Hurns, they were making money while Albert Robinson was hurt. So you got those guys. He's gonna have to beat out somebody. He's gonna have to be the guy because they paying him that much, and most likely they're already projecting to be that number 1 wide receiver. So he hasn't shown it so far in his career, but I mean he has the potential, like everybody else. He has the potential in the right situation to be that guy. So it's basically all going to be a course on Blake Bortles and see if they can get that connection and, can they take off.
Yeah, I just think it's crazy to pay a guy almost $10 million, fully guaranteed, that's only had 1 year where he's gotten over 450 receiving yards.
Yeah.
So I made this argument when they were rumoring that he might be signed to Baltimore, which obviously didn't happen. Let's move on. Last bit of wide receiver news. Let's see. Denver former second-round pick, wide receiver Cody Latimer, he has signed with the New York Giants, so a little bit of a move there.
Damn it, Giants. I wanted this guy.
I know you did. You want every player, though.
I really like him, though, because he didn't really pan out in Denver for some reason. Didn't really work out. But he's got lot of potential. Got a lot of potential, man. So I really liked him. I thought the Eagles would probably pick him up, especially when they lost out on, what's the kid that got not drafted, but got signed. I'm blanking on his name. It'll come back to me. But it was another wide receiver I was looking at. But once he got picked up, Paul Richardson. Once he got signed up by the Redskins,
I had no idea what you were talking about, so I had to let you stumble there.
It was in my mind. So I really like this. I like this pick, especially in Pat Shermer's offense. I think it's going to be adding to their wide receiver core, and this is a good addition.
All right. Last bit, just quick hit. Some other news for IDP players out there like ourselves. Unrestricted free agent safety Tyrann Mathieu signed a 1-year deal with the Houston Texans, so he found a home pretty quickly.
Like it.
Former Seattle Seahawks defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson has officially signed with the Minnesota Vikings. So, they're buffing up that defensive line.
And they need to. They play in Philly at the beginning of the year.
One game. They got to buff it up. They spent a lot of money for one game. Yep.
Man, listen, it was hilarious. Before we get into this thing, St. Patrick's Day was a couple days ago, right? So on their Twitter page, they said there will be no green worn for Minnesota this year because Lil's still salty over the Eagles destroying them in the championship game. And what was funny was their boy Kirk Cousins, they just signed. Him and Nick Foles played for like some high school team or something like that. It was called Michigan something, and they wore green. So and then basically, I got a picture of your new franchise quarterback with my quarterback having a nice little cheese smile photo with some green on. It was just a little trolling we're doing. Just a little bit.
Yeah, that 38-7 game, that was tough.
That was beautiful.
Beautiful. For Vikings fans, obviously.
Glorious.
So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to why we're all here. We're basically out of time already, so we'll
oh, damn.
We're about 50 minutes in, so we'll
see what happens.
I mean, look, I said there was a lot of news right at the beginning.
We have fun.
We have a lot of fun
breaking stuff down, and now look at this. What do we do with this?
We're gonna run through this. All
right,
okay, if we don't make it under an hour, we don't. Sorry, but we're gonna do our best, and we're gonna move into our topic of the day, which is our free agency fantasy impact projections. So. We have some of the top candidates that have either signed, been traded during this offseason, and where they were, where they are, and we're going to just briefly talk about what we think the fantasy implications are of them signing with this new team. Now, we're going to go position by position as we always do, and we'll start at the quarterback position, and where else to start other than with Kirk Cousins going from the Washington Redskins to the Minnesota Vikings. I have to assume that this is that big move that helps get this team over the hump. I talked about this during the playoffs last year, how this team, their window was pretty limited unless they made some big moves. They've lost a couple pieces offseason, but none of their core players as of yet. They upgraded at quarterback. Their defense is legit. They have great wide receivers. They have a very good young running back. They have a very good tight end. Their offensive line is pretty good as well. I think that the Vikings are a legit contender in the NFC again this year, and possibly they're going to be I don't even want to say they're going to have serious competition, but I don't want to just anoint them, but I think that they probably walk away with the NFC North. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I think that division is between them and the Packers alone, just because of Aaron Rodgers. You can't discredit him. But off of talent alone and on paper, I think you got to go ahead and crown him off the break.
Packers just don't have a defense to keep up with them.
Yeah, they don't. They made some adjustments. They've been making some signings. So that's low key, but we always got to see how that's put together at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't expect them to have a top 10 defense like the Vikings will, though.
No. I don't agree with you on that.
Yeah.
As far as the Vikings go, to me, it's all going to be how fast can the chemistry come together between Kirk Cousins and these receivers. Because like we said in previous shows about Sam Bradford, in this situation, he brought Kyle Rudolph to another level, a guy that we both liked, and he really shined under Bradford when he was the quarterback. Adam Thielen was a guy that basically was working at a grocery store, and then Stan Bradford got in contact with him and started getting some chemistry. Now he became a guy that you drafted late rounds, so now he's a bona fide second, third round pick. Off the break. Definitely second round. So, and then you got Stephon Diggs getting connections with him and Bradford. So it's all, to me, going to be how fast can this connection and the chemistry happen between the him and these skill positions. Because if it takes off like it should, then I think absolutely it's going to be a hell of an impact he's going to have. And he's in a great system. I know they're going to address the offensive line and make it even more stout, give him good protection. And as far as the skill position, he has way better, downright arguably better weapons than he had 2 years ago when he had Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, and an average, healthy Jordan Reed there.
I would argue his weapons are definitely better. For me, okay, we're taking this from a fantasy perspective. Kirk Cousins, for me, is honestly someone I'm probably not going to be drafting. He's going to be going way too high. He's in a new system, in a new place with new weapons. All of those things concern me. Like I said on, I think it was last week's show, when we were talking about our New Year's resolutions, I was going to be very wary of the players in new places. That tends to, especially these key positions, be a rough transition for the first year. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, I'm kind of wary on as well, because Adam Thielen, you have to invest a early third-round pick in. Stephon Diggs, a mid-round fourth pick. So I don't know. Those prices, they don't sound too steep to me, but I'm assuming that there are probably going to be players around them that I'm going to be a little bit more interested in, just because, again, these guys have to build a rapport. Kirk Cousins infamously starts slow, and then he kind of catches fire as the year goes on. I will tell you this offense, with him there, they're going to respect the passing game. I'm all in on Dalvin Cook this year. I think he bounces back and has a good year, and we know that Kirk Cousins likes to throw to his tight end. I think a lot of that had to do with Jordan Reed was kind of the focal point in Washington when he was healthy, but I really like Kyle Rudolph as having a good bounce-back year this year. So that's my thoughts on the impacts for Minnesota. Any additional thoughts before we move on, CJ?
Now we can move on. I think we covered everything.
Let's move on. Alex Smith. He went from Kansas City to the Washington Redskins. For me, Alex Smith is basically undraftable. He downgraded in his weapons. He's in a new team, on a new team with a new system. He's a game manager, a very, very top-tier game manager, but I just don't like Alex Smith for my fantasy team. I don't think he's going to replicate what he did last year, because a lot of his points last year came from his players, short passes that then they broke a tackle, juked someone out, and they went for a large yardage, and that reflected back on his total stats. I'm not in on Alex Smith this year, and I don't have a lot of faith on the weapons in Washington. What are your thoughts, CJ?
Yeah, I think it's a downgrade on weapons, coaching staff, everything. I think he's going to be, at best, he's going to be a waiver wire guy for you, matchup-based guy at the end of the day. He downgraded on tight end. He's downgraded on wide receiver. It's across the board, and it's concerning, especially a guy that, finished really good this past season on all categories statistically. And so to come to this situation, it's going to be rough. So I would tell people to probably stay clear away. And it only reason you look at him if you're having a bad matchup with the guy you as starting.
Yeah, he's definitely, like you said, a streaming option. I'm not drafting him. Josh Doxson, Jamison Crowder, Paul Richardson, all these guys concern me. I don't think that, obviously, none of them are on par with what he had in Kansas City. I will say this. Jordan Reed, I mean, he always goes way too high for him to be on my teams anyway, but I think that he has an opportunity to be just as good with Alex Smith, because Alex Smith clearly likes to use his tight end. Look at Travis Kelce. And if he goes down, Vernon Davis, I definitely like. But other than that, there's not a lot in Washington for fantasy that I'm really that high on. I'm not a big believer in Samaje Perine right now. Rob Kelly's still there. Chris Thompson is still there. It's a little bit congested for me. It's a little bit of a cluster. It's very murky. So I'm probably staying away, but hey, to each their own. Let's go to Case Keenum, who went from Minnesota to Denver. Obviously, Case Keenum coming off the best year of his career. The question is, does he keep it going on a new team with a new offense with what I would argue is a downgraded offensive line and a defense which is still very good, but they're kind of on the decline as well. I mean, obviously trading away some of their best pieces. That was a magical year for Case Keenum. I just don't know if I see it. I know the Broncos are trying to sell that they're all in on it, but I don't think that they truly believe that, and I think that they're going to probably try and address the position in the draft this year as well. I don't know. What are your thoughts for fantasy, CJ?
I think fantasy-wise, once again, you're not drafting this guy. I don't even know if you're going to do a matchup-based guy for them, because I think this is a mirage at the end of the day. I think as far as production, what you're going to get, you're probably going to get at least the same amount of production that you got this past season with Trevor Siemian that you're going to get with Case Keenum this year. I just don't trust it. I don't. I think the Broncos, they're putting up a good front, making it seem like they got their guy. But they really lost out. I think they really wanted to get Tyrod Taylor. If they did, I think that Tyrod Taylor was supposed to be their second option if they couldn't get Kirk Cousins. And right now, I think they were scrambling, and they got Keenum. And to be honest, I don't think they believe in it. To be honest, I think it's a good front.
It seems like a convenient backtrack, because this is a team that we knew very early on. They were saying that they were going to do whatever it took to land Kirk Cousins. They knew pretty early in free agency during the tampering period that they were not going to land him. There were a lot of reports saying that they did like Tyrod Taylor, like you mentioned. I guess they kind of knew that they weren't going to be able to get their hands on him, so they diverted to Case Keenum, and they're trying to say, we got our guy. Well, if he was your guy, I don't think you would have signed him to a 2-year contract. 2 years, $36 million. That's not that much, and it's really just a 1-year contract because they can cut him next year for big savings. So, like I said, I think that they're going to go out. I think they're going to get themselves another quarterback in the draft, and Case Keenum being there. Look, he did a great job. He had a magical season last year in Minnesota. Career highs across the board. His quarterback rating was 98.3, which is very standout from his career. He threw for 3,500 yards. He threw for 22 touchdowns. Not huge numbers in those aspects, but he did the best that he could being thrust into this position. And he didn't start the year. Sam Bradford did. So I think he did good. But, I mean, here he is in Denver with all new everything around him. I just don't think the magic will translate very well, and you have to also obviously therefore translate to this as we were saying, if Kirk Cousins got there, hey, Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, they are fantasy relevant again. I'm not upgrading them at all from where I had them previously. I think that they're going to basically kind of stay where they are. They're going to be these flex-worthy guys that have probably wide receiver 2 upside. Would you agree with that?
I agree, totally.
All right, well, let's move on. Sam Bradford, Minnesota to Arizona. I mean, what more is there to say?
Already.
Yeah, we've covered this pretty extensively. Go back to the warm-up, but I really do like him. They need to get him more weapons is really what it boils down to.
Same mindset.
Based on the new news that's coming out as well, it is a contract that extends through 2019 as well, but it looks like it's only $5 million dead cap, so it's really a 1-year deal with a second-year kind of option for the team. So yeah, we'll cover that more as we go into it. And if you want to know more about Sam Bradford and the Cardinals, that was our first thing we talked about when we got to our headline, so no point in kind of double dipping there. Go back, check that out. There'll be probably a timestamp in the description down below. Let's move on. Teddy Bridgewater, Minnesota to the Jets. I'm going to throw this to you, CJ, because I don't even know if Teddy Bridgewater is going to be their starting quarterback.
He might. It's all going to depends on Josh McCown's health. I think Josh McCown is going to be the starter. If there ever comes a time earlier on this season that injury hits Josh McCown, he has not shown to be the most healthiest quarterback. You always come down with injury somehow. Just not, and I don't even think it's all because of him. I think it's just because of the poor offensive line. But so if that happens, then you'll see him. But I think everybody, smart people, would not draft him. They'll most likely leave him out there on the waiver wire. And if that scenario happens where an injury occurs, then you can be able to pick him up. But I think it'll be kind of foolish of you to try to draft him and think that he's going to be the starter. You just got to go off of what happened so far. What happened in that situation? The players are believing in Josh McCown. They wanted Josh McCown back. They got Josh McCown back. He's going to be the starter. Yeah,
I mean, and if we want to do it, smartly, he knows the offense. And if you follow the money, he's paid $10 million to be the starter this year. Teddy Bridgewater's being paid $6 million. So, I think that puts their order into perspective for us.
There you go.
So, I would say Josh McCown is the starter. Teddy Bridgewater's a backup. Therefore, the fantasy impact is very minimal. He's a guy that keep an eye on. If he's deemed to be healthy and he's able to play, and Josh McCown goes down, maybe make a run out to the waiver wire and throw some fab his way or burn some waiver priority, but you're not drafting him. So let's move on to Tyrod Taylor, going from the Buffalo Bills to the Cleveland Browns. This I actually like because I think Tyrod is going to be the most developed quarterback that Cleveland's had in a long time. His legs and being able to scramble and create problems for defenses and extend plays is pretty nice. And for him, he's got probably the best receiving core in front of him that he's had since he's taken over as a starter back when he first signed with the Bills. So this I actually kind of like. What are your thoughts here?
I definitely agree with you. I think across the board, offensively, he has upgrade. He has a younger tight end and David Njoku up and coming like that. Running back right now, as it stands, if they don't get Barkley, I would say that was the only decline he's had. I don't fully believe in Carlos Hyde as far as health. Duke Johnson, he's a kind of a gadget type player with me. He's effective in that system, but I don't know how his role is going to be with Tyrod Taylor under the helm. And just like you said, receiver wise, absolutely best trio he's had in his career. That's what's going to be the bread and butter is going to be right there, where we start to see some really good production out of him. And I like him. A guy that I see probably people drafting him in the late ninth round, most likely 10th, 11th. When around that range, I see him probably get drafted.
I'm betting, honestly, that you'll be able to get him even later than that because people are going to be scared. Tyrod Taylor, it's a new face in a new place. And when the draft rolls around, they're going to draft a quarterback. That's going to start a huge conversation about whoever it is, when they're going to be starting, if they're going to start right away. I mean, everything we're hearing is that Tyrod's going to be the guy, and I think they're smart to do that. I think Tyrod will probably be the guy from start to finish this year, barring injury, or obviously very poor play. So I'm not worried about it in that aspect. So I like Tyrod this year, but because of the fact that they're going to draft one of these guys, Cody Kessler's still there, I bet it drives down his asking price, and you'll probably be able to get him as a late round flyer in probably the late double digits. I mean, you might even be able to get him as your quarterback too if that's your draft strategy. So just an interesting upside guy, and I think a definite streaming option who you could probably plug in based on matchups as probably a pretty consistent starter for you. I'm not going to say he's going to be an elite fantasy option, but I think his being able to run, obviously that creates a safe floor for you, and then all these weapons that he has, obviously talking about Josh Gordon, Corey Coleman, and the newly acquired Jarvis Landry, plus Carlos Hyde, who can catch balls, and he's the best running back they've had in Cleveland in a while. I think David Njoku at tight end, he's got a lot of weapons, so I think he's one of those sneaky picks that could be pretty nice for you as a very late round pickup. And let's finish the quarterback position with A.J. McCarron. He went from Cincinnati to the Buffalo Bills. I think this is basically the opposite. He doesn't have a huge track record. Over his career, he's had, 86 completions and not even 1,000 yards. So, I know that he's got a lot of people really like him. He had 7 starts in 2015 for the Bengals, had a 97.1 quarterback rating, which is obviously not too shabby, but he's in Buffalo. Buffalo is kind of in shambles right now. They've traded away a lot of their stuff right now. They've really entered a full rebuild to acquire draft picks to play for the future. I don't think Buffalo's playing for a lot this season. So, to me, he's undraftable, and I don't think I'm going to be drafting many of the weapons in Buffalo either. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, same like Maya said. I don't even think he's probably gonna be a waiver wire guy as far as matchup based dude. I like the situation. I like him being able to get that chance to show that he can be the guy there. But just like you said, as far as overall talent, there's not a lot of talent there to support him. So yeah, I'm not really feeling it.
Yeah, so I guess we can move on. All right, from there, let's go to the running back position, and we will start with Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde goes from the San Francisco 49ers to the Cleveland Browns. Now, obviously, this is kind of hard to predict because we don't know if Cleveland is going to pick up a top-tier running back with their first or fourth overall picks. So that kind of makes a unique problem here, but the offensive line, I think, is better than what he had in San Francisco, but the offense, the offensive coordinator and the offensive theory, the playmaking, all of that, I think takes a step down. But it's going to be, as we've just kind of said, a pretty well-tooled offense, and the Cleveland might surprise a lot of folks. I think that Carlos Hyde is going to be one of those guys that's kind of polarizing. I think people are either going to jump in on him or people are going to completely pass on him. So his value is going to be a little subjective. What are your thoughts?
It's a little murky because it all depends on what they're going to do with that pick. That if they don't go get Barkley, then absolutely, I think that he's going to be third year Jeremy Hill at best, where he's going to probably be that kind of player for them in that system when Jackson was the coach for the Bengals. So that's something you compare it to. But if that doesn't happen with Barkley being there, then that raises an eyebrow that the potential. If he can stay healthy, like you said, you definitely has an upgrade on offensive line and overall talent around him. He has the potential to be that dude because he did have some stretches where he was a nice pickup, a nice play, and he would get some good yards for you and good points. But when the pressure started getting cracked down on him and the focus was on him, then that's when the stuff was dried up. So there's a lot of distractions with him in this Cleveland offense that can help you out, and he can be a possible guy that rises up when you're bored, so you can be able to draft late and still have that running back one upside though.
Yeah, I bet you he finishes the year as a running back too. Obviously, because you have to take into account his injury history and the fact that Duke Johnson's there, a guy that Cleveland seems to really like, and they're tooling with trying to get him a new contract. But like we've been saying, this could all be for nothing because they could draft one of these top-tier running backs, and that's going to throw yet another curveball into the mix. So as of right now, it's tough for fantasy purposes to really get behind Carlos Hyde because his draft value is going to widely be determined by what happens in the draft. So we'll have to reapproach this about a month down the line from now. So let's move on to Isaiah Crowell. He went from the aforementioned Cleveland Browns to the New York Jets. Now, I think that he's automatically penciled in as being their main workhorse. I think he is their first second down guy, obviously. I think that he has a pretty decent opportunity here to get you some points. My concern with Isaiah Crowell is the Jets as a whole, and he's not much of a pass catcher, so I think that if the Jets fall behind, we're not going to be seeing too much of him. We'll probably see a little bit more of Bilal Powell at that point. So, again, Bilal Powell being there is a concern, so that's something you have to take into account. You're going to have to do some risk-reward here. What are your thoughts, CJ?
Yeah, I think he's going to be – I mean, you gotta like him, and I know Jason and I, we both like him, but it's all going to be a part of it's going to be a committee with him, to be honest. I mean, I know people don't like to hear that, but it's got to be truthful because I think, like you said, Bilal Powell is going to be that pass-catcher cat. And if their offense can get going and, get some good running lanes for him, I think that's going to be where Isaiah Crowell, gets his money and starts to flourish. So, I mean, that's basically it.
Well, I mean, and let's not forget, of course, Elijah McGuire there as well, a guy who they drafted last year. They like him. Yeah, they gave him some opportunities late in the year last year. So it's murky. So Isaiah Crowell is probably going to be one of those guys that you get in the mid-rounds as an upside pick. I doubt he's going to be a late-round flyer because it's going to be – the running back position is going to dry up probably pretty quick this year, so we're talking probably middle rounds for Isaiah Crowell, I would guess. I think he's going to be a low floor, high ceiling type play, though. I don't. And I don't even know how high his ceiling is since he's going to have this committee. But, he could break out. We know that he's a talented running back. We've seen it in spurts. But if the team falls behind, they're passing the ball more. They're doing more of their 2-4-minute offenses. That's not going to include Isaiah Crowell. So let's move on to Jerick McKinnon. This is interesting. Obviously, he went from the Minnesota Vikings, where he had I've said this plenty of times, he had a number of opportunities to be the guy there. With different regimes, different running backs he was backing up, and he never was able to seize that opportunity. He goes to San Francisco, where he becomes one of the highest paid running backs in the league. What? Yeah. We've heard a lot of news that Kyle Shanahan wants to use him in that Devonta Freeman role, and they want to kind of do a 1-2 punch, a 2 running back set like what he had in Atlanta. So, I mean, clearly they saw something on tape that they like with him. They think that they can get more out of him than what the numbers have shown and what he's gotten in the past with Minnesota. Kyle Shanahan, look, we all believe in the guy. He is a very good offensive mind. We've seen it in many places where he is offensive coordinated. I can get behind Jerick McKinnon being a fantasy option, but I don't know how high I think his floor is. It's a committee, and we've seen him fail many times. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I like this situation. I'm more intrigued on the potential of what he can do in the Shanahan offense as far as being a multi-purpose back, as far as being able to run the ball if the opportunity is there, as far as the lanes, but more effectively being a part of the receiving game. So for me, I think a lot more people they're going to be a little skeptical about it because they are like, really, Jerick McKinnon, that money, that system, what's going on? But I think a lot of people comfortably can draft him and still be optimistic about the situation 5th, 6th round. That's me, personally. I think that you can be able to do that, and I'll feel comfortable and probably not even scoff at you on that because you're taking a flyer. The potential as far as the comeback on your investment is pretty high, but you're still picking them up at a spot where it's like, well, hey, look, you drafted a couple other people that are probably going to be there for you in your flex position. Here's just another option you can have there that has potential upside for you.
Yeah, man, it's tough because look, Joe Williams is there. We all like Joe Williams. We know how talented he was. He fell in the draft because of off-the-field issues. We've said this narrative countless times. That Kyle Shanahan banged the table to get this guy. They went and they got him. They like him. He was just on injury reserve last year. So I think that Joe Williams is more of that red zone guy. Maybe Jerick McKinnon is the hurry-up guy. He's the pass catching back for sure, but I just don't know. I have to see it. I've heard people speculate that Jerick McKinnon's going to be the workhorse. I've heard things that are saying that he's going to be the third down option and Joe Williams will be the starter. It's really hard to tell, but if you're going to be smart about this, like I said, you have to follow the money. They are paying Jerick McKinnon a crap ton of money. I have to assume that Jerick McKinnon is going to be their lead back here, and I think Joe Williams will be that red zone, knock the ball into the red zone or through the red zone into the end zone, get the touchdown type guy. If I had to guess, if I was a betting man, I had to put money down on it right now. So, like you said, you're going to have to probably spend more than you're comfortable on to get your hands on Jerick McKinnon based on all this narrative because he'll probably end up going higher than you're going to be comfortable taking him. Let's move on. Dion Lewis. Man, this one. New England to Tennessee. Obviously, we've talked about this pretty extensively. All the Derrick Henry truthers out there that really want this guy to be the workhorse, to be the guy there. This is a pretty similar situation. They brought in Dion Lewis, which is a 3-down back. He is explosive, and if you follow the money, it makes you think that he's going to be the lead back for this team, which is bonkers. What are your thoughts here, CJ? Because there's a lot of educated arguments going back and forth in the fantasy community, whether it's going to be Dion Lewis that's going to be their 3-down back, and then Derrick Henry's going to continue his role like he did behind DeMarco Murray last year as that red zone type guy, change of pace guy, or do you think it's going to be Derrick Henry as the 1-2 back and Dion Lewis is going to come in as that 3rd down / hurry up guy? Which way do you think this falls?
I'm going to say the latter to that. This is the one scenario where I'm not going to follow the money. I'm just going to look at the overall system. They did the trial run and got rid of that dead weight of DeMarco Murray, and now it's time for Derrick Henry's time. Now I like the signing with just the potential of having the more versatile scenario with these backs. I mean, you already know Derrick Henry, that's not his strong suit, catching the ball. He can do it, but it's not a strong suit. It's not comes natural to him. So you bring Deion Lewis in there. I like that. I like the potential of being two back sets with both of these guys in there. And I think that's what this offense is most likely is probably going to do. And you're going to see them get more involved together than be on the field doing that. So in my mind, I do like the signing. I do like the potential of Mariota to be able to dump it off and Deion Lewis be able to take it 15, 20 yards with some dump offs. I like that. But as far as going in with a mindset of, for trying to project if Deion Lewis is going to be the main guy, no, I'm not buying into that. Derrick Henry's the guy.
Yeah, it's going to be polarizing. There's no denying that. I think that a lot of people are going to be kind of waiting and seeing here. We're going to have to see what we hear from the team, what we hear from beat writers, what we see in training camp, what we see in the preseason, because as of right now, it could go either way. I just want to throw this in here that I'm I kind of find myself forcing myself to go with your thought process here and not looking towards the money, because we're talking about a guy who has about 330 touches or rushing attempts in his entire career over a 6-year career. So that's not a lot. He's not a big workload guy, Deion Lewis. So I have to assume that he's the change of pace third down guy. So it's just hard to get behind that with how much money they paid him. I mean, they paid him some pretty good scratch to come in there.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But it's just...
I think they said that his contract is top 10 among running backs right now.
I get it. It's just, in my mind, when you look at the body comparisons, I'm not trying to shame little guys, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. Behind that offensive line, you got that big body in Derrick Henry, got that monster you've been waiting to unleash and be that main dude. I can't see you snatching that away and putting Deion Lewis back there. I mean, no shot to him once again, but yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, well, I guess we will see. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Let's see. From here, let's move on to Jeremy Hill.
Wow,
we kind of talked about this one already.
Yeah,
so I guess you guys can kind of go back and look at this. Ex-Cincinnati Bengals running back. Now he is with the New England Patriots. We think that this was a pickup that they did, and they'll probably use him as the red zone back. They're going to use him to try and kind of just hammer the ball in, get the touchdowns. But it's confusing because Mike Gillislee's there, and of course the fact that they re-signed Rex Burkhead, which they used in that role previously. I now think Rex Burkhead is going to be the lead back there because they can use him rushing and passing. James White's going to be a change of pace pass catching back, and I think that Jeremy Hill is going to work his way in here, probably be another red zone type guy. It's really hard to get behind him with just how cluttered it is in New England, like it always seems to be. What are your thoughts, CJ?
Well, like we talked about earlier, man, I like it for him to be able to, take that position off of Gillislee, which is going to most likely happen. As far as how much do I see him being involved in this offense, it's going to be tough with Belichick's offense with Tom Brady. Garrett Blount's not there anymore. That was their guy. That was their bruiser guy. The guy that you can be able to count on and you can be able to hit your wagon on as far as in this offense outside of these pass catching backs, which is a truckload of them. You knew that LeGarrette Blount was going to be that bruising back, and there was nights where he just took off for you, scored like 3 touchdowns. He even led the NFL touchdowns one season. I don't really see that with Jeremy Hill, and it's going to be tough. It's a tough sell for me to try to sell you on that. I see him, like you said, being short down back. I can see him getting hot at times and spurts. Yeah, but I don't know if that's going to be consistent throughout the season. No, I honestly can't try to sell you on that because I know it's not going to be the case. Yeah,
I have to assume that it's going to be Rex Burkhead, like I said, 3 downs. Even though they used him in the red zone, I think that's where they're going to bring Jeremy Hill in because they're going to want to keep Rex Burkhead fresh. They never like to overtax their running backs in New England. Right. So I think all 3 of these guys, the waters are pretty murky. The Mike Gillislee experiment, we'll see how that plays out. I don't think he's going to be a direct impact here. I think Jeremy Hill slides in as that number 3 running back behind James White, or maybe vice versa, but it's Rex Burkhead's show. So for fantasy, you're probably not drafting Jeremy Hill. All right, let's wrap up the running back position, and then we'll push the pass catchers to Friday's show. Okay. Jonathan Stewart, he long time Carolina Panthers running back, now with the New York Giants. I think obviously he's there as the lead back, first, second down. I don't think the Giants are done yet. I have to assume they're going to bring in another running back at some point during the draft this year. I don't know. I mean, Orleans Darkwa, a guy that they liked, is free agent. Shane Vereen's a free agent. But they still have Paul Perkins, which they were high on at times, but I think we've seen he's not the answer. They drafted Wayne Gallman last year, which by various accounts I hear that they still like. So I'm really up in the air right now, but with what's behind him. So I have to assume that Jonathan Stewart is going to be a guy worth getting. They've buffed up the offensive line already, though mostly that was for pass protection, but they've made some moves to upgrade the offensive line. So I ask you, CJ, what are your thoughts on Jonathan Stewart, who I think can safely say is at least the first, second down back here?
I agree. He's the first, second down back. Like I said in a couple episodes ago, I said that he's probably going to be their Brandon Jacobs in this offense. And if they get Barkley, I doubt that his value fantasy wise is going to be anything more than a waiver wire guy. To be honest, if Barkley's there, people are going to be running to Barkley, and we're not even going to be talking about Jonathan Stewart. To be honest,
this is a situation that's tough to talk about for fantasy because we just don't know with the draft.
I mean, honestly, can you validate or make an argument to draft Stewart if they do get Barkley?
I don't think they're getting Barkley.
Why would you do that?
I don't think they're getting Barkley. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade back and they pick up an offensive lineman in the first round, or maybe get Sony Michel maybe like I said with the trade back with Buffalo, or maybe they get a later round running back, which just adds more congestion and not so much clarity to the backfield in New York.
If they did though, I agree with you. I can see your scenario. I do see two different scenarios. They're going quarterback. The fix to Eli, prepare for that, or they go attack a guard. I see them going one of the two. But in this scenario, if they did, you cannot justifiably draft Jonathan Stewart, knowing you got Barkley there.
No, because at that point you'd have to assume that he's the handcuff, and you're probably not drafting him unless you draft Barkley. We'll see. I mean, look, Jonathan Stewart, an incredibly talented running back in his day. He hasn't really had a great opportunity because he's been in a system in Carolina with a quarterback who likes to vulture rushing touchdowns. I think he still probably
has... That's not going to be the case here.
No, not even a little bit. I think he still has something to prove. I think he's got the ability to do it, but he's a much older back, and we're going to need clarity before we can really move forward. If we were drafting today, he's a guy that I'd be drafting as probably a higher-end double-digit round, late-round flyer type guy. I don't think I'd even put a middle-round pick on the guy because I just don't know if I see him being that fantasy relevant, even if he remains being the lead guy, just because this is a run first team. The offensive line still needs help. We need to see more things happen in New York. I could probably talk myself into a mid-round flyer if I'm honest, but as of right now, that's where I'd be comfortable drafting Jonathan Stewart, which I know is probably on the low side, but that's just my comfort level. Where would you take him if you were drafting today, CJ?
If I was drafting today, I wouldn't draft him, but if I was forced to, I would, probably ninth, between 9th and 12th round, like deep. That's probably even way too early. Maybe like 11th, 12th round for me. 11th, 12th.
Yeah, that's fair. Looking at where he's going right now, which this is not super accurate because it doesn't reflect all the changes yet, but he's currently going in the 11th round, which that's I just looked this up, and that falls in line with what I was saying, and I'd be comfortable taking him there. But man, as an 8th, 9th round pick, which is where you'd probably have to take the flyer on him, I don't know if I can get behind that.
No,
yeah, that's tough. Like I said, I like Jonathan Stewart, but he's very old now. All right, let's wrap this up with a guy we've also already talked about a little bit, Doug Martin. Doug Martin, to me, is completely undraftable. He's going to be in a deep running back committee, of which he will be probably a high-level handcuff to Marshawn Lynch. So I think we can basically just leave it there because we already talked about him pretty extensively. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
All right, well then let's get out of here. We will talk wide receivers and we will talk tight ends on Friday's show. Make sure you guys tune in then. And, of course, we'll bring you all the other top headlines from around the league. There's sure to be a lot more signings between now and then. The new league year is young. These free agency signings, they come in waves. There's no denying that. And We'll see. Well, guys, it's just getting started. Make sure you guys subscribe wherever you're listening. Stick with us all off season long. We got a lot more news to bring you, a lot more fun things to talk about, and you guys don't be afraid. Shoot your questions to us, and we'll happily answer them for you or answer them here on the show. Could be off season problems, league management things, commissioner things. We get a lot of questions right now for people in dynasty leagues and keeper leagues talking about keeper questions. You can submit those very easily on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. You can submit them via email to thefantasyfootballfanatics@gmail.com. You can follow us individually on Twitter as well. I'm at GPalmerFFF. CJ's at CJHickman89. Basically, we're all over. Just look for us. You'll find us. Do you have any parting thoughts for me, CJ?
Hey, man. Looking forward to next time we talk. It's going to be a good episode, and hopefully we get some more exciting news. Normally it starts to slow down after this, but hopefully we get some more news.
Yeah, we're kind of approaching the end of that. Like I said, they come in waves, and I think that it's going to slow down. Our next big wave is going to be around the draft, especially after the draft, who doesn't get who they're looking for from the draft itself, and then we'll probably see another wave once training camps kind of start opening, players start getting cut. That's when a lot of other free agents start getting signed. Those are probably the three biggest moments of the offseason for free agent signings. So, it's going to start slowing down, but there's still a lot of players out there that need to be signed. So we'll be here to cover it. All right, guys, we will see you on Friday. Take care. Have a great week. We'll see you then. Bye.
Life in the fast lane, moving at the speed of life, and I can't slow down. Only got a gallon in the gas tank, but I'm almost at the finish line, so I can't stop now. I don't really know where I'm headed, just enjoying the ride. Just gonna roll till I drop and ride till I die.